All right, welcome all. This is the LDN Perspective podcast. This is our 50th episode. I'm on a Zoom video link with a few guests, hosts. Everyone want to introduce themselves? To my left or to my right? Who have I got?
I don't think we know where your left and right is, you know.
All right, Ali.
Yeah, I'm Mo.
I'm Kojo.
Yeah, and we've also got a guest as well, Edward. I said your name, didn't I?
Hey, boy! What's up, Mr. Ade? Yeah.
Don't worry, I can cut that bit out.
It's fine. No, it's cool.
All right, cool. Yeah, so Mr. Ade, and we might have a few other guests that might dip in to the conversation while this all takes place. We've also got a silent partner in the conversation, Dwayne.
Bro, don't even hype for Dwayne. He's mean.
I'm in and out. I'm doing stuff, washing clothes, cooking, and all sorts, bro.
Yeah.
Good, I'm only messing with you, bro. Don't bad me.
No, calm.
All right, cool. So this conversation today really is just is basically speaking about so basically we're all having a discussion about growing up back in the day, and sort of how that links into sort of Blue Story. So we've all watched the Blue Story movie, and I guess there are themes in the movie that sort of take us back to our upbringing and growing up, and sort of wanted to sort of just have a discussion about the themes around that, and just sort of how that links into how we grew up and how that's molded us into characters that we are today. I guess we could start off by saying, has everyone seen Blue Story movie?
Yeah.
What do you think of it, Ali?
It's quite interesting. It's got quite a lot of dilemma and a twist on it. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happening, but it kind of catch me by surprise. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I liked it. I thought it was a good film. I think it raised a lot of relevant themes, especially with what's going on today in London. But besides that point, it parts of it did remind me when I was growing up, when I was younger. And I guess what it does is it shows sort of like some of the paths that have been set out for some people and the choices that they make growing up. Kodj, what did you think of it? I know you just watched it today, didn't you, for the first time?
Yeah, so obviously, I think I'm a bit, when some of these movies come out, especially the UK movies, I'm always a bit apprehensive watching it, because a lot of the times he always kind of conveys kind of like messages and movies that we've seen in the past, gang life and all those kind of stuff. But I think just for the purposes of this recording, and it's always something I wanted to watch anyway, because apart from that, it's really good just to support people within our community that are kind of doing well, Rapman. And so, yeah, I just wanted to watch it. And today I went on Amazon and it was $9.99 to rent it. So I just thought I'll just pay that and watch it. And I must say, initially, it brought back a lot of like memories growing up, But towards the end, though, it was really quite sad. And it kind of paints the picture of how some of these, it kind of paints that picture it paints it a bit well. But yeah, I think, it left me with a lot to think about, I would say. It left me with a lot to think about.
Yeah, Mo, you watched it?
Yeah, no, I watched it. I thought it was really good. I think it was, one of them moments of nostalgia where you're just remembering basically how things were back then and just realizing how it closely related to you personally. I think it was very well done. I do give it to Rapman. He executed it really well. And it wasn't like your typical movies that have been out in the past where it's just nonsense violence and guys just chatting shit the whole time and all that rubbish. Yeah.
I think as well, I think for me, it definitely conveyed the fact that I guess people, because at the end of the movie, you saw that everyone that made certain choices in that there were no winners at the end of the movie, and a lot of that was based on the decisions that a lot of the characters made going forward in terms of like I guess the relationship between Bricker and Madder when they were younger. Obviously, as they grew up, I guess they became distant. And at the end of the movie, spoilers here, obviously Madder died, Bricker went to prison, Bricker's brother committed suicide. His mother, has lost 2 sons as a result of that. Madder's mum has lost a son. Madder lost his his girlfriend when he was younger. So there were so many losses, that have been conveyed in this movie. And I think a lot of that is a consequence of the lifestyle choices that a lot of these people made. I think in terms of like drawing me back to when I was younger, yeah, definitely, it definitely reminded me of a lot of things. What I will say is, I wasn't involved too much in like gangs and all that, but like I knew people, and I guess for me, when I was younger, I was interested in girls a lot more, and that's definitely what had me.
Yeah. So when I was watching it, actually, you're right. It's the choices that you actually make. It's quite sad how, or what we go through when we're quite young, and the involvement that we get into. Because prior to me as well, just on your kind of experience as well, I was not involved into a gang, but because I was surrounding myself with people, obviously that's a temptation of being involved, and also because people knew my faces around. So that's also a part of like a huge kind of like involvement, if you know what I mean. Because sometimes whether or not you are involved because you're surrounding yourself in a circle, that can cause an issue, if you understand my kind of like terms. So yeah, it kind of relate. It quite relate a lot. But what kind of helped me, because I was more interactive with other things instead of fully engaged with the people that I knew regarding violence or gang or anything like that. But what the reason why I said that, to my understanding, sorry for the spoiler, the reason why I mentioned that it kind of catch me by surprise, because we all know the end of the story of gang, but this one kind of twisted it and allow it to be, it's not only about gang, you know. Gang does not just start just like that. There has to be a reason why behind it, and then that reason why behind it is usually either you're a member of a family, they're part of a gang, or your cousin or your friend. So you as an individual, whether because you don't have no choice or certain circumstances has happened, maybe someone, your partner, your member of family or friends, something happens to them, you feel as in your own, you need to take a stand, if you know what I mean. So within that stand, obviously the involvement comes into it, and then you don't have no choice. Then you wrapped up yourself into a situation, and then by the time you know it, you're looking back. There's no way for you to able to stop the situation. You've gone too deep, so deep that it's unbelievable. And then by the time you know, in the blink of an eye, you're gone. You're in there. That's the funny thing about this kind of situation. That's why it catch me by surprise, that how the relationship, two friends, based on just on the love, basically.
Yeah, no, I think for me there was a lot of memories in it, because the thing is, when growing up, there are certain stuff that it almost becomes, obviously you're hanging around with certain friends and you get yourself in certain situations where it's like you're there in it. Like if you imagine this Madder boy, the situation that he found himself in is that he actually lives in Lewisham, and it's not like he was in a gang or anything. He just happened to know some of the people that he grew up with. And this is what kind of comes with these whole kind of postcode kind of stuff, where sometimes you're labeled because you live in a certain area, you're kind of labeled as a ghetto boy or Peckham boy or whatever not. And it might not necessarily be that you are involved in such things. Even if you remember, there was a scene where there were like two boys on a bus listening to like music or whatever not. And they went on the bus And they asked the boys, "Oh, you guys are from Peckham or whatever," and the boys were like, "No, we're from Elephant and Castle," or the other one even mentioned another area. And to them, it doesn't matter because you're from that area, and it just doesn't matter whether you're in a gang or not. You're just another black guy that lives in that area. So I think a lot of people got involved in ways where they didn't have much control. A lot of people got involved because they just live in the area, and certain stuff kind of found them, or they got into altercations that they had to defend themselves, which then became part and parcel of this back and forth kind of issues. So I felt like that was interesting, how he painted, how he showed that a lot of people that were involved in this, it was not like initially their choice to be part of a gang, but they were kind of labeled as part of a gang because they lived in the area. I'm wondering what you guys, growing up, if you guys ever had scenarios where someone approached you or someone tried to attack you or whatever it was, someone tried to jack you or something because they thought you, I don't know, Peckham boy or whatever it is, or you're from Warford or anything like that. Did any of you guys have those kind of scenarios, or you guys were just on the Gallus movement?
I mean, I think I know one thing that I noticed in the film definitely happened growing up was all the, you know, like all the snaky movements, like where guys would basically, if you're with someone and they know you, all right, cool. But as soon as you leave and you come with your friends or whoever, everyone there's going to try and rob your friend, knowing full well that it's your friend or whatever. But they still try and do that shit. I remember growing up, I saw that a lot, literally like a lot of the time. It was to the point where I knew that obviously if I was gonna go meet up with certain people and they were with other people, I knew as soon as that person was to walk away or something, that these guys are gonna try something. Like it was that deep. I just knew straight away they were gonna try something. And there was a couple of times where that even happened to me, where I'll catch up with these guys. And there was one time I went up to St. Saviour's School after school.
Trouble, man. That's actually playing ground, man. That's actually playing ground. You made that place, man.
And that was right next to obviously Chaucer. I know them guys. Oh, trust me. And I see one guy, obviously I knew, but for some reason he just fell out with me. He didn't like me no more, whatever, I don't know. And he told everyone, "Oh yeah, he's a ghetto you, innit? He's a ghetto you. Oh, he's ghetto." So yeah, and that was them times when we had, you know, the shot jackets. Remember shot?
Yeah.
I had a shot jacket on, innit? So them guys thought, all right, cool, let's go try jack this guy for his shot jacket. Obviously, I didn't have it.
Did they beat you up?
But yeah, I got rushed, bro. Seriously, like I had a cut on my eyebrow, everything, like proper.
You know what though? You know what I'm talking about, yeah? You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. Back in the day, yeah, when you think back, cause a lot of innocent brothers got rushed, you know. And what makes it worse, yeah? This is the worst thing with our generation, even the generation before us and the one coming. We've had no healing from all of this trauma that we've had, and we just get on with it in life. You get me? See normal people. You see, when I meet normal people and I told them my come up, and we compare our come up, it's a complete madness. But I think it's normal. You know what I'm trying to say? And like, obviously, we're carrying a lot of pain and a lot of trauma and going about our everyday life. You get me? So that's one thing I think that we have to always kind of consider. You get me? Because I remember a lot of things has happened to a lot of innocent youths, you know, and it's just one time, and you never see them again. Right? That was their wake up call, and then boom. That I'm trying to say, but.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. You mentioned the whole process is about healing and stuff, because if we go back a bit back in the day and we see some of the friends around us, we know a lot of people are not around, isn't it? For whatever different reasons, whether they pass away, whether they're in jail or they ended up back home or whatever it was, man. So it's true, that healing process, we never really discuss it. As people that have come from such a background or experienced some of these things, man. And it's funny that Mo mentioned this whole when you are with people and stuff. Because I remember when I started, it's funny when I think back in the days, bro. I remember when I started hanging around these guys, where it's like, even making that trip to McDonald's himself here was a bloody huge thing. It's like you're going into a battle, man. Because everyone that comes around that doesn't know you, like, who's this guy? Like, how do you guys know this guy? Yeah, so it's all that conversation. The minute someone's going to order a Big Mac and you're just sitting on that seat, bro, it's peak for you, man. Like,
Was it
bro,
McDonald's on
it
Woolworth
that
Road?
real.
Was it McDonald's on Woolworth Road?
Yeah, but I think,
Yeah.
but
Nah, I'm telling you, like it felt like that. It felt like that. Like it felt like there were certain areas that were like no-go zones. Like I remember, like even McDonald's, like going towards McDonald's, it's just like you had to take a deep breath because you didn't know who you were going to encounter.
Yeah,
You going up there.
if you wasn't known, McDonald's was a no-go zone. Absolutely no-go zone. Because
No-go,
see me,
man.
I've grown up around Wolf Road, yeah. So that obviously it was our era that started that Wolf Road McDonald's thing. And I'm telling you from now, there's times I used to pull up McDonald's. I will see like, you know, like the person I used to look up to on the Woolly or something. You know, like one of the man on the ends, I will see him running around the chairs because one of the little cruddy little African youths there, it's doing a madness with McDonald's. I'm thinking, fam, what's going on? And I'm just, you know what I mean? And hey, listen, so much times I've walked in McDonald's and I've just seen a madness going on. Someone's certified getting violated. I'm thinking, you know what I mean? So that place there, it was bad still. It was.
Bro, I never used to go there. You know, back in the day, because when we were in school and that's when McDonald's was really going off. I never used to go around there, fam. I had no reason.
Is that when you moved around there?
It's only when I moved over to Woolworth Road. That's when I started going around there. But before that, I wasn't going around there. I had no reason to be there, fam. That was mad for me, man. When I hear all these stories, come on, man. You go back to school, yeah, and these guys are coming back with all these stories. Oh, do you know what happened? This happened to this person. That happened to... Man, it sounded like a movie, fam. It was mad. It sounded like a movie.
But you know what? Like, you know, in Blue Story, like I remember there's one scene at the start when one guy was just like, fuck this, man. It's like you man are fighting over streets that you don't even own. You own none of this, you know, but yeah, you wanna sort of have that sort of territory. And I remember back in the day I went to like a barbecue at Mitesfield. I remember there was me, a group of other people. It was just like once couple guys came on their bikes and they're like, I think they must have asked one of us where we were from, and someone said from Camberwell, and the dude was like, fuck it, I'm gonna lock this off, and he just rode off and came back about 10 minutes later with like a bag of other people, and they just had like bats, knives, and everything, and they chased us out from, you know, just because of where we said we were from, you know. And it's just like these look what, like, I don't know, like you just gotta go through the logic in your head. It's like, you lot are fighting for what? Like, you don't own none of these streets, but yet, you know, you have this real sense of pride about like protecting these streets, and I don't get it. I just never got it at that time.
Yeah, it's sad today. It's true that you say that. It's sad because what it is, I don't know how we inherited it, but one thing I will tell you, that I didn't know why I didn't like Ghetto Boys. I was just because obviously my elders, they didn't like Ghetto Boys, so that's what it was. But one thing I knew is that cool, I'm not really looking for trouble, but I know for a fact if they catch me slipping, they're gonna do me in. So if I catch one of them, even innocent or no innocent, you know what I'm trying to say? Innocent or no innocent, exactly what you said, Cam. Yeah, you told them you walking down back your business and you telling them, oh yeah, I'm a normal youth, but I'm from Peckham. You ain't got no pass. You're gonna get a beat down. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna do you in. So I'm thinking, bro, that fact there alone, I'm a part of this. Because if I see one of them, I'm gonna do them in as well because you're gonna do the same to me. That's how it was.
And that's the point that I was making, though, where sometimes it's just because of where you live. Like, you just happen to live in Peckham, or you just happen to live in Lewisham, or wherever it is. And it's not like you're part of it. But if people, and the problem you have also is that when you live in these areas, you are going to know people that might be part of it because you grew up with them. That's just part and parcel of it, right? So someone walking down the road and seeing you with someone that they got beef with, it means that the next time that they walk down the road and they see you, they're saying that you are a Ghetto Boy, you're a Peckham boy, because, bruv, you're affiliated with someone, innit? And that's how certain people have to start being part of this.
That's enough. And then what happens is, this is the problem. I've seen it with my own eyes. A normal person will be rolling, but because he's rolling with people that are kind of known gang members, but this youth's innocent, he might get caught slipping because someone's seen him. He gets a beat down. Now he's changed. He's on stuff now. Because, do you know what I'm trying to say? He's changed his whole path. I've seen that so much times. Normal youths, going church, whatever, just wanted to roll for one weekend. You know what I mean? Just one weekend wanted to roll and got bad treatment. Now he's on smoke now because, do you know what I mean? He feels violated, and I've seen man's life change just because of that one event. You know what I'm trying to say? So, yeah, it's mad.
But You just hit the nail on the head there, because watching the Blue Story, which I kind of caught up today, and there was one character in there called Younger Madder. And that's exactly what happened, where he's happened to live in Deptford or something. He's not really into all this Peckham and Ghetto stuff. But what happened is he got beat down and his girlfriend kind of passed away from that. After that, that was it.
Got bad treatment.
He went
Remember that you, Coach, perfect example. Remember that you used to roll with Charlie Boy, Timothy.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
He wasn't on nothing. He wasn't on nothing for so long until when he got a beat down, and then he was the most dangerous shoot. He was the most dangerous shoot after a while. Yeah. That's when I said, you know what? When sometimes when you get too much, when you become a victim too much, this is what's gonna happen. And I've seen so much.
But then you know what though? Adding to that, actually, even watching the movie, it feels like some of these people, they get to a point where they feel like they have nothing to lose anymore. That's when they become dangerous, isn't it? Because it's like, right, you know what? I don't have nothing to live for.
But that's because it's that victim narrative. You can't. How long you gonna be a victim for? Do you know what I'm trying to say? There's nothing worse. I've already had bad treatment, so I might as well be on crack. Do you know what I'm trying to say? That's how these youths think. I've already had bad treatment, so what? Am I gonna continue getting bad treatment? Remember, that's trauma, you know. It's trauma, fam. That's trauma, bro. You know what I'm trying to say? You've got five niggas kicking you up in your head and you're on the floor and you're getting beat. That's trauma, bro. No matter how tough you are, that is trauma. So after that is however you're gonna deal with it. Are you gonna be on this thing or are you gonna crumble? Most men turn on this thing. It's your natural instincts.
You know what though? Like it's like even like with some of the kids that I represent, it's like I've represented a couple of them, got knives on them. I remember one of them was saying to me, I remember he was like, I think this was like we were like halfway into the year, and he said like four of his friends had already died from knives, like knife stabbings. And he said he got caught carrying a knife. And he said to me, he's like, look, like even if I carry the knife and I'm arrested, I'm still alive. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to die. You know, I've had 5 of my friends die already. Police haven't been, nothing's been done to protect them. So as far as I'm concerned, if I'm caught with a knife and I go inside, I'm still alive. That's me. That's the most, that's real.
I'd rather go Joe. Like, remember, you have to understand, certain man, like even when our brother Tony died, like you get to see the details, you get to hear the details. Then you sit down and you say to yourself, bro, that can't happen to me. That ain't happening to me. So regardless, if I got to roll with this or I got to roll with that, even if there's a risk of me going Joe, I am not getting that treatment. I am not putting my mum. That's what went through my head when I lost my brother. I'm saying to myself, I'm not putting my mum through that treatment. I mean, through that heartache and my family, because you've seen it. I've seen it first. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So
that's the stuff though, and I think you guess because obviously when you're on that end where it's like, you know, you are involved in some of these things, isn't it? Back and forth, whatever way you want to look at it. And then something like that happens to someone that's close to you and you see the repercussions. So it's not just the action anymore. It's not just that person passing, but you see how it affects their family. You see how it affects the community. You see how it affects their friends, man. It's not the same, bro. I swear down. That was such an eye-opening, like that happening to our friend, like our close friend that we grew up with. And it's just, it's hard to talk about. And obviously it's like, watching the movie, it's only when it got to those moments, man, and I was like, wow, this is bringing back so much kind of painful memories, man. Thinking about so much painful memories. Because initially it just started off like, you know, back in the day, jumping on the bus, cracking jokes, all these kind of like, you know, even cussing each other and all those kind of stuff. Then it started getting a bit deeper because I remember even myself and Ashley, we've been involved with people that we knew from school. But when we say school, the school that we went to though, man, who did you not know there? Like, that school was just full of criminals, man. Everyone and anyone came from that school, man. So it was like, and I think
crackers the killers.
Oh, fam, it was just too much, man. Like when you just go through the name roll, man, you just be like, wow.
Ash, you mentioned something quite important. You mentioned like the word H. You say heritage. Where do you get this from? But the question is, how does it start, you know? I understand you're mentioning, you see some of your friends, they are victims, and then at the same time, they're innocent. By the time you know it, they get attacked, and then next thing you know it, they are one of the dangerous persons. But the question is,
go on.
Yeah, but the question is, where does it start off from? Where does it start? Because the reason why I'm asking this question is because sometimes when you're really thinking about the environment or your community, I feel like sometimes when you're vulnerable, and also when you're lonely, you're not doing much, or maybe your home is not in a supportive. When I mean by supportive, it's like either your mom is not there, they're working 24 hours, or your siblings are part of that gang as well, or you yourself, you're just bored basically. Because, and then when you're bored, the next question is outside, and then from outside, then you start getting involved with people or with friends that have come out of a bad home. That's the concept I'm seeing it.
Yeah, but hear this now. Let me tell you how it could start. Like, Ali, you're old school, yeah? Back in the day, me and Kofi, we used to roll in the ends. We were just normal, innocent guys that used to just play football. Normal, yeah? No problems, no starting trouble, and that's it. But it comes to a point when you get older, you realize people around you, you all have like a common enemy, if you like. Do you know what I'm trying to say? There's like a common enemy, and that kind of brings everyone together. And then it all starts off innocent, and to when, you know what I'm trying to say? So, for example, with those ghetto boys, like, it was all innocent, it was all fun and games. You know what I'm trying to say? And to when they rush, I think they rushed Kilo. Did it, Cod? I think they got Kilo. That's when it was personal. So, I don't know. Anything could happen, because as I said to you, what I said to you in the beginning, like, it's just like, even if you're not involved, from when you're from a certain area, there's a risk. You could be going to college. How much people used to go college, and there's bricky youths there, there's ghetto youths there, you know what I'm trying to say? And then just because you're from that area, and you're just a normal youth going to college, you might get bad treatment. So it could start from there. It could, you know what I'm trying to say? It could start from anywhere.
But then also, does it also, is it also on your appearance? Is it the way that you dress? Is that how you attract?
Nah, man. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no. Because remember, the thing is crazy though. Remember, these guys are crazy. You have to understand the self-hate is so real. Because you see, if there's youths here, say if there's youths riding out, say ghetto youths are riding out impeccable, yeah? They're only gonna look for somebody that looks like them. Do you understand?
Well, that's based on your self-hate.
Yeah, but that's not my fault. That's your problem. I'm just just because I look like I'm on this thing, you're gonna move to me. Where if they see a normal, geeky looking black youth, that he doesn't look like them. So the self-hate ain't there. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You have to, they will ride out on someone that's got a trackie on that reminds them of themselves. And that's the deep sadness of it. That is the deep sadness of it. They have to look for someone that reminds them of themselves, because they know what they're on. So they're thinking, this shoot's on what I'm on.
I know what? Funny you raised that up. Because when I was 18 years old, I was wearing loads of tracksuit, and I had my hair very long. As soon as at 18, I literally changed my wardrobe. So I started wearing jeans. I started wearing, you know. And no,
that's true.
I know you did. You did.
Leggings and that. No, you started wearing leggings, I remember.
But yeah, so
you're down.
I changed everything.
But you know what though?
I did want to come in regards to the whole parents thing, because I do want to advocate for the parents out there that it was not their fault. And even in the whole Blue story, it showed a mum that did everything they can for their child, and it really wasn't the parents' fault. And I can't really blame any parents, because the only thing they're victim of is they don't know how to raise a child in that environment. It was the environment that consumed the child or us when we was younger, as opposed to our parents. I'm sure everyone, I can speak for everyone here, but I'm sure their parents all did what they can for them. They didn't really encourage them to go in that kind of lifestyle. But if you're literally, as soon as you leave your actual front door, and that is the environment you're in every day, day in, day out, from school, and before you get home, then it's difficult to kind of avoid it or not get caught up in that stuff, if you get what I mean.
I understand what you're saying, Mo, but in a way, your parents are still part of your upbringing. I'll give an example. My parent, anytime that I bring something in the house, she will check. She will question me. She will just literally on my case like a military. So I know best not to bring anything in that house. So the
Okay,
reason
so
why
can I just chip in? Can I just chip in here when Ali's done? I think.
No, hold on.
Go on,
I didn't want to.
the reason why I brought that up is because your parent is the most important valuable in your home. Because if you're going out, you didn't bring anything. When you're literally leaving your house, you're empty, and then you're coming back in, and then you're full of some stuff. It's your parents supposed to be questioning you. They have the right to question you, and then they have the right to search you. So if certain parents are not doing that, yes, they might be working 24 hours or they got 2 jobs. Fair point. But at the same time, still your parents they can give you food and put in the plate or whatsoever. But at the same time, they need to make sure that they're checking you. My mom in my room, she used to check every single time what I bring, what I don't. So in that kind of handset of it, I think that parents do have a very important role. And I can say now probably the parents now that are quite young and having young children, and then this is happening now. I kind of feel sorry for them because they are also a parent. They're also a young adult. So what do they know best? So most of them most of them are single parent. So yeah.
I did want to come in there quickly. Just say, I'll tell you now. I know personally one of the wildest guys. Yeah, but whenever I used to go to their house, their parents were the strictest people ever. They had both their mum and dad. They'll say, yes, auntie, blah, 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 this, that, to the point where he would have to get me to come to his house and ask his parents for him to come out. That's how strict his parents were. But I tell you now, this guy was the wildest dude ever. I remember in school, on the way home on the bus, he'll punch up girls, fam. That's how wild he was. Do you get what I mean? And I couldn't say that's a fault of the parents there. The parents did everything they could to be strict to this.
That's not wild. That's not wild. He's just crazy. That's what it is. That's not wild.
This guy chat shit.
That's what I'm saying. But what can the parents do about that? They have no idea their child's like that.
Look, let me just come in here though. The point that I wanted to make though, yeah, I think it was 2 points, isn't it? I think obviously there is the whole conversation about the self-hate that Ashley touched on, which is really interesting, isn't it? Because yes, we live in a community where you don't necessarily want your children to dress a way it's not accustomed to them, just to navigate these kind of stuff. If you're already on that journey and that shoe, then that's fine. But your child should be able to wear a hoodie because they want to wear a hoodie. They shouldn't have to kind of change who they intrinsically are just so that they don't get attacked or be, you know what I mean? So I think that's just one thing I wanted to touch on. Second one was on the parenting stuff, which Mo and stuff was touching on. And I know, for instance, for me growing up, like some of the scenarios that you've painted, Ali, it was never about taking anything home. Because you need to understand, when you get involved in some of these things, yeah, and especially just watching Blue movie, yeah, Blue Story, whatever not, you start getting youngest. You have youngest there, there's girls around and stuff like that. So you need to get to a point where you don't necessarily need to take anything home. You could go home and that's more saying, auntie, mom, everything is fine. You don't smoke, nothing. You go in, no one knows what's going on with you, but no one knows what you're doing outside. So I think it's a bigger conversation because for me, what I've heard all the time when people are talking like bad parenting and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not saying that's not part of the conversation, but what I'm saying here is that that's not necessarily like the be on end all, because there are a lot of people actually that we grew up with that came from a good homes, but they were still out there doing whatever not, because as Ashley mentioned, at that time it was seen as fun until it got to a point where people are like, whoa, people are really dropping here. This ain't no fun. This is really real. So it is part of those conversations as well. People just don't join because they want to fin. Sometimes they join because their friends are fin. Sometimes they feel like they're having fun. And then it gets to a point where it's uncontrollable and they're in too deep, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but what let me just add that quickly. What I'm trying to address here is, we need to be very careful how we're stating this properly, because your coach, you're just saying that, okay, the person that is actually the bad victim, go home, do not bring anything, right? But then gives the stuff to the youngest. And the youngest take these equipment or whatever, these tools, take it to their home. Likewise, they still got a parent, and that parent supposed to still look at them and check up on them. So we need to be very careful how we say.
You can't always check. Them things can get slipped in anytime.
No, I'm not disputing.
To start checking, look, I understand the point that you're making, Ali, but to start checking on your child, that means the trust is broken in the first place. So the question you need to ask yourself is the trust broken? If you haven't done anything for your parents to suspect that you're doing something bad, then why would they be checking on you as if you're in
You
a
could be
police
bringing
station?
in the dotty, but that's what happens.
Like,
These little used to be
tough.
holding the
Once the
dotty,
trust is
they'll be holding the
broken,
Mac.
then we're talking about a different thing. And that's what Ashley's saying. People are taking all sorts of stuff in their house because their mums trust them. Their parents trust them that they're not bringing anything in, that they got their head switched on. Why would their parents be like saying, oh, every time you come in the house, oh, let me pat you down or anything like that? They will not be doing that.
And Ali, you know what makes it worse? The little, you see the mandem, you see the gangsters and that, yeah? They will target those little good innocent youths. They'll target them. The ones that are quiet. You know what I'm saying? The one that no one's gonna suspect. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Even the little girls. You know what I'm trying to say? These times you on these beds, you've got a little Mac 10 or something. I'm telling you, no one know. Only time people find out these things. Only time you have to understand how people find out these things. It's always come down to informant. It's always informants. How people get caught.
But then at the same time, that's why when you have your children, you kind of involve with them a lot. You take them out for like holidays. You interact with them a lot because it always starts from home sometimes, you know? Yes.
No, listen,
time,
yeah, I'm not dismissing that.
80% of the time, your child is at school doing whatever they're doing. And the teacher is interact with them quite a lot than you. But as a parent as well, especially if there's both of you, you are supposed to fully understand the game out there. And especially when you're in that environment. But then flipping on the other side, I feel like this environment has been embedded, and I feel like it's part of the situation where they want it to happen. Because when you look in Caucasian, for example, if I live in Chelsea, around Chelsea or Sloane Square, the environment there is totally different to where I am living, if I'm living in Suffolk or Lambeth. You know what I mean? So in that kind of aspects of it, there's a reason why it is how it is, because of the environment.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the point about how people get involved in this, I think Blue Story does illustrate that, and it shows like different journeys. Because I think with in Bricker's case, he only got involved in it through his brother. And I remember when I saw the movie, and I was just like, this brother's the worst role model of anything. Like he just like all trying to encourage his younger brother.
The youth that ended up in a wheelchair.
Yeah, man. I was like, are you trying to get your younger brother involved in this stuff for? Like,
Yeah,
you
but
could
that's
do.
normal. That's what we see.
But
We see that in the community all the time.
It's just nuts.
It's nuts. It's true. It's not. Yeah, but that's all they know. It's funny. Like that's all they know. They just grow up, and it's like, oh, we hate this area. So anyone that's with me, you have to be with me. How can you be my brother and you're not with me like that? That's all they know. And of course, yeah, watching it like that, you're like, how can you even like bring your brother into these kind of stuff? But him at that point didn't feel like he was doing anything bad. It's a norm to them. It's a norm.
Yeah,
and that's the crazy part of it.
It's crazy.
That's the crazy part of it, man. And then it's funny because when you watch it a bit further down, then you see that his bigger cousin, who lived in Tottenham, was the person that actually got him involved in all this in the first place. So it feels like he's been passed down from generations, where his bigger cousin got him involved, then he got his brother involved. Then obviously when he gets into certain situations, he's now thinking, why did I do that? I'm the reason why my brother is like involved in all these kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And by that time it was too late. So it's funny, but I just like to go back to the story, and that's the thing. I think back in the day, maybe even people around us might not have seen what each person was going through, because I know for me personally, a lot of the times coming out of my house before it was crazy. I know that I'm going to meet Ashley Kofi and stuff, and we're going to go somewhere, and I know, yeah, it's almost like I could have guaranteed that something's going to happen. Actually, am I lying? But it's like you walk down the street and it's just like, and it's crazy. And you know what? Obviously now that I'm old and stuff, I just feel like it's crazy how I used to put myself in such scenarios. How I used to put myself in those situations. It doesn't make sense to me now. Like seriously, like why would anyone do that?
You never had kids them times, man. Trust me, man. It was ride or die. That's the way it was. There was nothing.
Ride or die, you know. DMX.
Listen, there was nothing there for you to say, all right, cool. Obviously, yeah, you had that little something in your mind to say, yeah, man's moving reckless. But come on, coach. You know, once we made a decision, we was all in, man. Come on, man. That was it. We was all in. We was all in. That's all we knew. There was no going back. Like, we tried to go to college, it didn't work out. It was all in after that.
Well, talk for yourself, man. I finished, fam. I like, man.
Don't chat, man. Don't chat, man. I'm talking dead, man. Race, man. Don't chat.
I know what you mean, though.
My question is, my question is, how do we change this? How do we change this conception of our own generation, our own children? How do we change this mindset?
That's a complex question. It's very loaded because it's like there's so many different things. There's so many different things.
So many factors. Yeah, so many factors towards that. So many factors. I don't know, man. Me personally, one thing I do know, my opinion and my theory why these kids are so violent now is because they're you know, this whole narrative of like, you know, you can't fucking hit your children and, you know, the discipline and all of this and, you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So that has made these kids more, you know, that term they say snowflakes.
Yeah.
So they're very fragile and sensitive. So in turn, with these guys, they're not on they're not on no physical combat, they're on nothing. Hence why they've got the most dangerous weapons and knives to cause maximum damage. Because they don't want no physical contact. They're not involved. And the reasons why they're doing these things, why they are murdering each other, would be the same reason why me and Kojo would be walking on Wolf Road and some youths looking at us funny, we'll end up punching them up. That's as bad, that's as worse as it gets. But these youths are putting knives in each other's chests for the same reason, because of they're cowards. There's no masculinity anymore. They're not on this fighting thing anymore. Everyone's scared to get bad treatment. You know what I'm trying to say? It's all that fair. And that's my opinion with these youths when it comes to this crowd. Because remember, I've got little cousins that are active. And I could tell you a story. 2 of them got into a lot of madness with each other. They were arguing amongst each other. And then they put me on the freeway call. And then one of them were talking about, oh yeah, I'm gonna get my knife for you. And then the other one was talking about a gun. And I come in the conversation. I was like, raw, you two's mums are sisters. And you lot had a disagreement about something. And one of you lot talking about knives, and others talking about guns. That's why I hate your generation. You lot can't fight. Not one of you lot mentioned, let's go into the cage and have a one-on-one. Not one of you mentioned that. It's straight maximum damage. And that comes down to being a coward. That's my opinion. And this is what all these little youths mentalities, because us lot, we never came up like that. Yes, it got to a point, you had to carry a knife because you know.
It got to a point where there was no fist fights when we were growing up, bro. There wasn't no fist fights, bro.
Man. But listen, that's what I'm trying to say.
Fights, bro. No, you know the point I was trying to make here.
Man would get chinged up for it would be a serious reason though. More time. We weren't murdering people just because you're from the other side. Let's be real. You know what I'm trying to say? These are murdering people because from things that we will rush man for.
Yeah, now obviously, as you say, innit, things change, innit. I think the thing with life is that people always have to take it to the next level, innit? Because people are trying to kind of like make a name for themselves and all those kind of stuff. But I think regarding the whole kind of discipline in the house and maybe smacking your child, whether that's a good thing or that's the way to discipline or that whole masculinity aspect of it. I know growing up that there were kids that came either from the Caribbean and they were wild. And I know that in their household, they were getting smacked. I know the same from kids that came from Africa that were getting smacked in the house, but they were wild as well. So I don't necessarily know whether that is going to give that kind of like structured kind of way that these youths will stop kind of murdering themselves or anything like that. I think for me, really, the biggest thing, I do understand a lot of what Ali's saying, and I totally agree. I think parents have a big role to play. I also feel like the community has a big role to play. I've kept on saying this from time. The whole idea of this whole kind of no snitching culture, yeah, and people might not want to hear this, but this is kind of, it enforces these kind of actions as well. Because I know back in the day growing up, there are people, people are doing things in broad daylight. And nothing is going to come of it because the community that you live in, no one is going to talk. So if someone is being dropped dead or whatever.
That no snitching, you're right. Is that no snitching? It's a curse. Right. It's a curse.
Yeah, it's a curse because for me, growing up in Ghana, when I was really young, but Ghana, I used to hear thieves and stuff, yeah? And when they catch you, they're killing you. Like
Yeah,
that
I
whole
wanted to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that.
no,
community, like,
they're
there
not,
is no
they're not
playing with
playing. There's
all
no
these
playing.
kind of
Yeah,
trying to be a bad boy and all those kind of stuff. That's not entertained. Like
yeah.
to be on the level of bad boys that these youths are doing, you need to like abscond from the community. No one knows your whereabouts. You're doing stuff that no one knows about, because if people know about that, it's not really washing. Do you get what I mean? So I feel like, yes, the parents are part of it, but when you look at it and you look at the government and you look at, as a parent, the rights that you have of your on your own child, like, you know, your child will go to school, they'll be giving leaflets about if these certain stuff are going on in the house, call us and all these kind of stuff, because the government also tries to be a parent over that child. So you have that battle of certain parents that certain first generation, like African parents or Caribbean parents that came here and only had one way of disciplining. Their only one way of disciplining would be smacking. Now you come here and then you find out that you might not be able to discipline that way. And they find it difficult to kind of like change that. They find it difficult to adapt. Yeah, so a lot of them I saw happen, the children might end up in like foster care and stuff like that. And any child that goes into that kind of road, that's it. That's the end of it, because there's no structure any longer. They're on road doing all sorts of craziness. There is no structure in the household. So for me, I'll say yes, the parent is one. Two is like the whole idea of the governance of the child and who actually kind of like is meant to be bringing up the child. The biggest thing to me is the community and the powers, or this whole no snitching culture that I've kind of mentioned. And there are other things that I can't comprehend or get my mind around. Like for me, talking about these things seems like such a long time ago, and I cannot understand I can't say that it's the same playing field. Everything has kind of moved on. These kids are thinking different things that I might have been thinking about when I was young, like myself and Ashley or whatever. Not, and I'm not close to that kind of stuff to really know where this problem is kind of even coming from now.
What do you think about like the whole question of schools and like keeping like kids today would consider unruly in the schools? Because I think there's always a saying that when you suspend a child or expel a child, you might as well give them their first day at court. But that's where they're going. They're going straight to court. And it's like almost like the schools is washing their hands of what they're saying. This is a problem. We don't want it, and we just, we're going to wash our hands of it. So, I mean, what role do you think schools have to play in terms of like, because obviously, once that child's expelled, it's that saying that idle hands make for the devil's work. That child has nothing else to do. And, if parents are at work, then there's no structure or routine that's been put in place. So they're able to sort of get up to all sorts.
Now, it's a good point, because if we go back in the day, I wonder, all these people that were doing, how many of them were actually expelled from school? I know a lot of them were expelled from school. But one thing I was going to mention, though, that it's funny you mentioned that, because being part of the whole governing body for a school, one thing the school doesn't want is the amount of like misbehaving kids in that school, because it brings down the overall statistics for that school. So sometimes the kids are looked at as a stats. It's like, oh, we have that one child. It's not like we try to find out what the kind of like surrounding issues or the kind of environment that this child is living in as to why they're doing that. It's just more like, right, we have this one child. Do we really want to have this child in the school? And it's funny, actually, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but I think when you did a park thing for, you did like what was it when you did that part in the park? And I had a conversation with your dad, and because I know that your dad is involved in the whole kind of, like, if a child is in secondary school and they kind of like, I forgot the name of where they take them, but there is like a scheme where they have to go through the scheme. And I know actually that kind of supports doing that. And I was just having a conversation with him around what he felt about that. Because as you mentioned, Cam, I feel like once the children don't have that kind of grounding, remember when you're in school, you start from nursery or reception all the way to uni. You know what is expected. You have that structure around you. So all of a sudden, if you're in secondary school or whatever age you are, and you come out of that loop, what are you? Are you a man now? Are you meant to be working out for yourself? What does that actually look like? And a lot of them, as you're saying, they get into all these kind of, because imagine that you were misbehaving and now you have all this time on your hands. It's only going to be worse, if you ask me personally. So it is interesting the school's role in this, but then also as a parent, you need to ask yourself the question that if you are a parent and you have a child in that school, how would you want the school to deal with the misbehaving kids at that school?
It's quite catching that you brought that up, Cam, because there's quite a lot of factors into that, because I personally believe that individual childs, regardless they're bad or their behavior is worsened, I don't think that they should be expelled personally. because once they're giving them that one step ahead of them expelling them from the school, what happens? They become lonely, and they've become like they're not part of the community or the society anymore. And then once that happens, then by the time you know it, as what Coach just addressed, the whole life they start stacking it, and it's kind of like a trauma kind of situation. So that trauma builds up, and then the hope is kind of died. The hope is dying because they feel like they're not achieving within the school, from nursery all the way to university. So they feel like they haven't achieved, and obviously, and then they feel like at the same time they might not able to get the degree that they needed for school or for work related. And then by the time you know it, their mind is somewhere else. So it's kind of interesting how you brought that up, because school, I think the government, regardless of what the situation is for individual student, I feel like they should give, because sometimes the key point of someone that behaves badly is not because they want to behave badly, it's because they want to be known, they want to be noticed. You know, some children has this kind of approach that they need to be, everyone need to know them. They need to, because for example, I'll give myself a perfect example. When I was in school, when the buzzer goes off in school, right, my name is always announced. It wasn't because I was a bad kid. It's because I just like to be known. I like to be noticeable all around the school, the teachers. And then you get teachers as well that actually put you down and say, you know what, you're going to become working in McDonald's, or you're going to become doing this kind of stuff. But then at the same time, I flipped it around. You know, it's not because I was a bad kid. It's because I just like to be known. And I want the teacher to know me, that I'm about, and at the same time, for me to strive. Some student are very quiet in school, and some of them are very loud. So because the ones are very loud doesn't mean that they should be isolated or they should be expelled, or because they're causing trouble. No, it's not that. Actually, the people that actually, most of them are very noticeable, those are the ones that actually go far in life, because they've got that energy, that character, that they're like a military, and that's what the environment people want. They don't want every single time a children to be quiet. So I think personally it's a wrong mentality, and I think that the government hasn't really worked very hard or give a lot of put a lot of scheme for children that in that kind of environment, because it's really sad that you're taking a child in one environment and placing him to another environment that they don't even know about, and then there's the challenges, and then how do they come out of it? Some of them don't even come out of it. Some of them just drop. They drop and drop and drop, and by the time you know it, their life is so damaged and destroyed.
No, but I think I was just going to add to it. There was a report. I went to like a governors meeting last year, and there was a report that was carried out. I think they had like an independent body do a report into their school exclusions to see why a lot of black people, or I don't know what they call it, BAME or BAME, yeah.
BAME, yeah.
Yeah. Students were kind of getting excluded in schools. And I think what the report kind of found out was that, first of all, there isn't kind of like a uniform kind of like criteria for why a child should get excluded. So it's prior choices made by the headmaster or headmistress regarding how they feel about that specific situation. So there isn't kind of a uniform.
Racist.
Sorry?
Racist.
What's that?
Racist.
Oh, yeah, no, but look,
the school system is not help us at all from the get-go. Maybe not primary school, but once you hit secondary school, you've already got like teachers with their own perception. Because remember, we think about a lot of the stuff that we know today, right now. We didn't know that when we were growing up in school. You just assumed that if you went to school, you get good grades, you're gonna get a good job.
You're saying the mindset of them people there.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah, I'm telling you.
Some teachers had issues, you know. I'm telling you, bro.
No, but then, this is basically what I was saying with the report, but because you need to understand that the whole exclusion thing is a blanket thing, isn't it? So as you're saying, if a teacher is racially biased or they have stereotypical views of what black people, to put a child included. The other thing that they mentioned as well was to do with the culture. Now the culture part of it, and I remember this vividly, is like when I started working in my company, I used to have one of my friends, one of you guys, a black guy, you must well say, and obviously we used to banter. We'll just be like, kind of, it's like they thought we're arguing. So imagine we're just bantering, yeah, and everyone in that office thought we're arguing that we don't like each other. And I was like, no, this is us. This is fun for us. Like, this is jokes. This is banter.
You and Francis.
No, me and Robert, man. You remember Robert, the big guy, like a bit stocky and that.
Or the tall one?
Yeah, the tall one. So therefore,
Okay.
we're arguing. And I was thinking, why would we be arguing? So a lot of the times, the culture and that barrier for them as well. You need to remember, a lot of these teachers, they come in outside London. They've never experienced the London culture before as well. So they see
they don't get the energy.
No, they don't.
And they're quite young as well. They're quite young.
Yeah, that makes it worse. Yeah, it makes it worse. They don't get the energy.
But are they really young? Because think about how old are you?
A lot of the teachers are, you know.
Think about how old. What do you mean?
About 20. They're about 20.
How old is young?
Mid-20s. Mid-20s.
Mid-20s. That's fine. That's a career job. Think about when you finish uni. How old are you? You're 21.
About 22.
Yeah.
22, 23.
And you go, and then if you want to become, and when you want to become a teacher, you start off as a teacher assistant, right? How old are you? You're in the class, what, 24?
Yeah.
So that's not young. That's actually normal age.
All right. The reason why.
You're probably saying they're young in terms of they're in a boisterous school, but you have to take that situation out and actually. I know we're going off topic, but I'm just saying that's not.
No, you're not.
They're young teachers.
You're not. Let me address it properly, clearly. The reason why I mentioned I stated that they're young, one, experience, and two, like what Cam does as a lawyer. When you finish your degree, Cam, correct me if I'm young. When you finish your degree, you do a law school, right?
Yeah, you go to law school.
Yeah, and then that law school is roughly about a year or so, no?
It's a year full time, yeah.
Exactly. Then when you're done out of that, you've accumulate experience, and then on top of that, you have to have like a ticket, no? Like certain curriculum.
Well, you train for 2 years, and then
exactly
exams along the way.
So by the time you're done with all of that, right? You're roughly what, about 25-ish or something like that, what?
Yeah, about 25, 26, yeah.
Exactly. Then you start going into the environment. So I think teachers need to have that same principles, because when you're starting from 21 or 22, and then you're straight away doing a teacher assistant, and then by the time you know it, within 23, 24, you're teaching a student the age of what, 14 years old, 15 years old. You're kind of the same as them. Your mentality is kind of the same, and then you're learning from the books.
But teachers do complete a postgraduate study. I think they do the PGCE.
Yeah,
they do that for a year. They study that for a year before they go into the classroom.
Yeah. But
so I think
it's not enough.
They can combine it with classroom experience.
I think it's not enough. Personally, that's the reason.
I think the problem is, regardless of age, if you are racist or you have stereotypical views and you're biased in that, you are, regardless of experience or age, and that's across board.
That's the problem.
Any kind of occupation that you're
That's
in.
it, exactly.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
That's what it is, because it's the decisions that these people make that's what affects these kids. It's the decisions of looking at something to say, oh, you know what, they were just playing around, or they didn't even mean anything, they were just joking around or whatever. No, but you're seeing it as an aggressive behavior, to start saying that this boy is always aggressive, this boy is always this boy is always that. That labeling, once you start getting that labeling, you just get to a point, oh, they're going to blame me anyway. And then it gets to a point, and I have one little cousin that if something happens in the school, he's the one that's blamed. And even sometimes I find it difficult because they blame him all the time. And certain times he's saying to me, Kojo, it's not me, I haven't done anything. And I'm like, bro, do I believe you, or because you've got this title now? And I fully understand that. So I remember when his mum was going to speak to the teachers, and I said to the mum to say to them that, look, I understand that you guys keep saying this about my child and all that stuff, but you cannot, not everything that happens in the school with his involvement is his fault. And you need to label that you don't want to get to a point where you guys are victimizing my child, because that's how it's feeling like. Because you don't do no investigation, something happens, and it's just like, oh, it's so-and-so, because that person has been the rough person in class or whatever not. You know, when children pick up that reputation, and they end up living their whole life with that reputation.
Let me add into that as well. There's 2 points I wanted to say. When you mentioned that, about blaming, first of all, as soon as this is what I think, brown skin, multiple colors like us that need to get this in our head, especially us that are young parents right now. Once your child has been blamed, first encounter, once they've been blamed, go to the school, don't dismiss it, go to the school, both of you as a family, go to the school, make sure that you're present and address the situation clearly with the head teacher or the teachers. Make sure, because what happens here, when your parent is not involved, then the teacher or the head teacher has the right, they think they has the right to blame the student again, and then again, and then again, and then again. By the time you know it, it's just your child that is always being blamed. That's the reason why the Caucasian are very different from us. Because Caucasian children, they can be very dismissive, and they can very go in, cause so much trouble in school. But because they're Caucasian, they get away with the murder constantly. But what flipped it in the other side? Yes, it's part of racism, but also the parents, they usually come to school regardless. They will take the day off from school, from their work, and they come to the head teacher or the teachers, and then they proper address the situation. And then from there, by the time you know it, the situation is died off. But us, when our children has a problem, we don't even go to the school to solve the situation. We just leave it to the children, let them go and sort it, and then you continue, and then you escalate, and then escalate, and then escalate. By the time you know it, that's it. That's what I
Don't
think.
get twisted. Listen, don't get
Yeah.
twisted.
I was
Some
gonna
parents,
say,
yeah,
let's not
some
mix up
parents,
like.
some
Yeah,
parents,
go on.
yeah,
Sorry.
are on. Some parents are on smoke, bruv. They will go to the head teacher and stick it on them, and then after that, they will
Yeah.
know that teacher knows that their mum is one of those ones that's on smoke, and they will not fuck with that child. I'm telling you, bro. I've seen it. Look what happened with Gavin's mum and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, bro.
Yeah.
They don't want. If your child, if they know that your mum's involved, they don't want no smoke. If they see that your child,
Yeah,
if they see that you're one of those ones that your parents don't care, then you might get victimized.
But also sometimes, I think when you get to secondary school, some of these parents lose that kind of ground of knowing what's going on with the child. Because I remember in secondary school, there was stuff that was happening that I didn't want my parents to know. There could even be parents meeting. I don't even tell my parents. I don't even tell them. I don't want them to come. I just want to go by myself. I remember vividly. Yeah, because it's like, who wants their parents there, man? Oh, is that your mom?
Parents even was
man. You need to know my mom, innit?
That was my biggest stress concern back in the day.
Parents evening.
I don't want my mom there.
Teachers love that.
For, you know? And that's the thing. So, Ali, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the times when we're putting the thing on the parents and stuff, yes, I understand that the parents need to know what's going on in their children's life. But these kids, they get to a certain position where they don't give the parents that information for them to be aware in the first place. And that's secondary school. Imagine you get to college. That's the end of it. College, that's the end of it. Teachers don't. I'm even shocked now that one of my cousins, the teacher keeps calling us when he misbehaves. That's crazy. That's unheard of. Teachers don't do that in college.
Yeah, so that takes us to the end of this discussion. I guess we're all trying to just kind of just incorporate our upbringings with the themes in Blue Story, and I think there are a lot of relatable sort of themes that we can look upon in terms of like how we grew up and the things that we saw, and even just like how I guess how we're raising our kids as well, and you know how I guess we could sort of I guess try to, I don't want to say protect them, but sort of like advise them and sort of ensure that they make the right decisions in terms of going forward. I think there was a lot of like interesting sort of viewpoints from different people, especially people that have experienced certain things. And I think they were able to sort of impart a bit of knowledge based on what they went through. I guess watching Blue Story, what it did do is it erupted a lot of the feelings that you may have felt growing up from that time. It reminded you of those moments and how it felt, because I think because we're in our 30s, so it's been a long time. So sometimes seeing things like that sort of bring up those feelings that you might not be able to tap into. And so I definitely took something away from this. But I guess just closing off, does anyone else want to chime in, add something?
Yeah, I did want to say, yeah, I think it was good kind of obviously getting a kind of aspect of how everyone individually kind of grew up and how that whole Peckham and ghetto thing was something that was very prevalent in our lives in some way or form, whether you weren't that involved in the particular gangs in that way, but you were around in that environment. I did want to also just talk on the whole, you know, how there's been this whole argument of all these gang films and stuff like that. It's not good for the community and all of that stuff. I would say with that Blue story, it kind of gave you a different aspect to look at it. So it just kind of basically put the empathy side, whereby you can kind of get some idea how some kids may caught up or end up in those circumstances, and it's not as mindless as the media or most other people's might want to portray it in that sense. So it's something I'll definitely encourage a lot of people to watch, mainly because it's something I would say I could definitely see a lot of aspects of it from my growing up in South London. And I think it was a good film in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, Coach, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I think you guys have kind of wrapped it up quite well, really. I'm always a bit apprehensive about watching these kind of gang movies because I'm on that side of, let's not kind of preach some of the negative aspects of our community. And regarding kind of like the imagery that we show of like a young kind of black youth living in the UK, it's almost all the movies are kind of painted like that. So I was really apprehensive about watching it, but I think watching it kind of took me back to my own kind of upbringing. And there were kind of like stories in there, scenes in there that brought laughter, scenes in there that almost kind of took you back to you being in such situations. And there were certain scenes in there that brought back a lot of pain as well, a lot of sadness. And because of close people around me that kind of lost their life. And just kind of reliving some of these things or some of these kind of scenarios that we kind of found ourselves in and stuff was just quite painful. But I think overall, I'm quite, obviously I'm here and stuff, so I'm quite glad that we've all been able to navigate these kind of like environment that we all kind of grew up in, and we're all kind of here now to be a testament of that. And I think it's one thing that you mentioned, Cam. It's not necessarily to say that we'll be able to like restrict or almost like our children might not be affected by some of these things, but I just hope that because we have been around it and because we know, we'll be able to guide them a bit better than maybe our parents who were not really used to that environment. So that's what I'm just kind of hopeful for, especially with my journey of being a parent, just being able to guide and be there for my kids a bit more because of what I kind of experienced. And hopefully trying to make the community a bit better, just to support people that might find themselves in such situations as well. So yeah, I think that's what I'll just like to add to this, really.
For me, from my understanding of all this is that, as what we all addressed, is certain part of our lives, everyone has a role, and that is whether it's your parents, that is whether or not it's your community, that's whether or not it's your friends. I think everyone is involved, has a role, and it's very important to, when situation is happening or they're happening, I think there need to be consequences. And I feel the punishment within what is happening or are happening, the consequences are not harsh, because one member of us raised something important, that if he was in Africa, there is consequences. For example, a simple thing, you go and steal something before you even get to your parents' house, the community will also flag you, and then on top of that, your neighbor will flag you, and then when you get to your mom's house or your parents' house, your member of your family will flag you, like your uncle, and then on top of that, your mom will flag you or your dad will flag you. So when you sum up all of that up, you realistically do not want to go through that trauma, because obviously you're scared that something's going to happen. But I feel like within this, where we live, in this environment where we live, there's no consequences. So therefore,
children or whoever it is, they feel like they have the obligation that they can feel like they can do anything, and they're not going to be no repercussion, and no one's going to be accountable for the situation. So that's why I feel like if there is probably a procedure that takes in place, I probably think that maybe most of this stuff that is happening, half of it won't be done, won't happen. But there is a hope, and that hope is for us young parents that are growing up, has been through that experience and in that environment, need to perhaps educate. Probably that's the word, that's the terms I want to use. Educate our young individuals to show them and let them realize there's other path of ways, not only just one area that is just what people thinking that is the only exception of life. There's better life, and there can be, and I hope within this part of it that we all kind of embrace that. So that's what I want to sum up on my side of it.
Kofi, I know you weren't really in this episode, but definitely need to join us for other things in future.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry guys, I missed it. Daddy duties, but yeah, next time I'm definitely there.
Definitely. Yeah, man. And so this is our first like visual sort of episode. So this will be going up. So I'll please ask everyone to like and subscribe us on YouTube. You can find us at the LDN Perspective. You can also find us on Instagram at the LDN Perspective. Same thing on Twitter at the LDN Perspective. And if you want to email us about any topics to discuss, you can email us on ldnperspective@gmail.com. Okay.
Yeah. Please subscribe. I'm doing a thumbs up. You might not be able to see it.
Yeah, man.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.